Hello, 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 and welcome to another session of Confidence Corner with me, Valera Wilson. Yes, I'm fixing my hair, but I am so excited today to have a conversation, yet another week where you, as a woman in the workplace, can get your boost of confidence through the work week, when you need it most. I love being able to be in your corner and to let you know that I am here to help you navigate the workplace and to find those moments of refreshing, being recharged, and reminded of your worth, because you are absolutely worth phenomenal things in your career. So this session, I wanted to talk about feeling like you don't belong. And that one is such a loaded conversation and a mouthful. Um, it's amazing to me oftentimes how many women move into the workplace and don't feel like they belong, don't feel like they are supposed to be there, don't feel like they have a voice, don't feel like they're as capable and as qualified, all the list of things that oftentimes we can feel for a number of reasons. And I want to be clear, honestly, sometimes it is because of things that we have internalized and think about ourselves. And then there's times where it's because there are things that the external environment have placed on us. We're not always making it up in our head. We're not always imagining things. Sometimes the feelings of inferiority, of being unqualified and incapable come from other people and things that they say or do. We like to give them a nice fancy name, microaggressions, and so for today's conversation, we'll put it all in that bucket. But the question becomes, how do we navigate that, right? Kind of what are the root causes? And I think there's so many, right? So like I said, there's internal and then there's external. When I think about the internal, I really think about, and I'm kind of making sure I capture some things. I'm gonna look at my notes here. But when I think about why we feel like we don't feel like we belong is sometimes because of our background, right? So it could be cultural, it could be, our ethnicity, it can be our gender, it can be a physical disability, a sexual orientation. It can be so many different things that cause us to feel like we don't belong. And I think when I have felt like I didn't belong, it's because sometimes the people in the room didn't look like me, or the people in leadership didn't look like me. So I thought, well, I probably don't belong here. And it's true. And I think even today with a lot of the diversity, equity, inclusion, the efforts around trying to make people feel like they belong by having representation at different levels of the organization. And so I'm glad about that. But is it all, has it been accomplished yet? Mission accomplished? Not necessarily, I'm sure. I think across the board, there are places that we can feel like we don't belong, because we don't see people that look like us, or because, the representation isn't there, or just because we feel like, our own background is a limitation and have those feelings in our head. The other is, we assume a lot of things. I can remember assuming so much in the workplace. I assume that because of my background, for example, that meant that they were smarter, they were better, they were more qualified. It was always this assumption, some kind of way that they, whoever they were, had something on me. They had something better than me. They had an advantage. And that was something I internalized, but it was called an assumption. And so I want for a minute to break down those assumptions and ask you the question, what are you assuming about people in the room, in those meetings, at the table, in leadership? What are you assuming about them? And especially as it's related to you, what are you assuming about them that's better than, smarter than, more qualified than you? And we all know about assumptions. People say you make assumptions, you make a fool out of yourself and the other person. And I think sometimes we project this sense of superiority on other people because of their title or because of their race or something that we perceive as more accepted than maybe us. And it doesn't have to be race, it can be gender. Like I said, it could be a list of things. But I want to anchor on that question again and ask you, what are you assuming about the other person that makes them better, more qualified, more capable than you? And so I say, anytime you go into a room, anytime you go into a meeting, get on a call, check your assumptions. Because those assumptions are, believe it or not, they're a reverse form of unconscious bias. It's an unconscious bias you have that they're smarter. And so it's going to drive and determine how you show up in that meeting. It's going to drive or determine what you say, what you don't say. Are you stumbling and fumbling over your words? Do you know you not say anything? Do you feel like you should just be quiet? Do you feel like you shouldn't advocate for yourself because of who the person is that's sitting in front of you or across from the table? Do you feel like you shouldn't or can't ask for more money or that promotion or whatever because of what you've assumed about the person in front of you? It's another form of unconscious bias, but the problem is that it's a reverse unconscious bias that hurts you. It's one thing, I think, for somebody else to have an unconscious bias about you and I, and their unconscious bias hurts us. But I definitely want us to not have an unconscious bias about the other person that then affects and impacts us, right? Like the saying goes, you can lie to everybody else, but don't lie to yourself. And in this situation, it's like you can have, let them have the unconscious bias before you have unconscious bias about your qualifications and your skill sets and your value and your capabilities. Do not, I'll say it again, do not have unconscious bias towards or against yourself. And I might write an article about that now that I think about it, because it happens. We assume a lot, right? So much has been talked about unconscious bias being towards us from other people, but we don't talk about the unconscious bias that we have against ourselves because of what we assume about other people and their superiority in the workplace. So I would ask you again, I'm going to keep asking, what are you assuming about other people being smarter, better, more qualified than you in the workplace? Check those assumptions and then ask yourself, how is it hurting me in the workplace? How is it hurting my advancement, my growth, my development in the workplace? Because you might find that it really is. I heard someone say that they assume that, I won't even use anybody else. I'll put it back on me. I would assume sometimes, especially, as I was navigating my career, that the person that was in the leadership role in the meeting should do all the talking because they were smarter than me. They were more capable than me. So I assumed that I shouldn't say anything. They should do all the talking. And that also another assumption I used to have was that if whoever was in the room doing a lot of the talking was often the person that was the smartest. And what I found is that those two assumptions had me on mute when in fact the opposite was true. Is that one, the person that was talking all the time sometimes was just the person that liked to hear themselves talk all the time, or the person that wanted to pretend or act like they were the smartest when in fact they knew the least. Or when I assumed that the person that was in a leadership role should do all the talking, I assumed that they had all the answers. But the inverse was true. They were having the meeting with everyone to figure out and get answers. So when I realized those two things, I realized, wait a minute, I was invited to this meeting. So that means I probably have something to say about this topic if I'm in the right meeting, right? Because there are meetings where you're invited to, you're like, why? I know nothing about this. Why am I here? But the meetings that matter, that are relevant. I had to think, oh, I do know a lot about this. And then that is when I broke down and I dissembled and destroyed that assumption, I was able to then contribute more effectively and in greater ways in meetings. But it started with me realizing and recognizing my assumption and then breaking it down. So I challenge you to think about all of your assumptions and attack them, because sometimes we're thinking that we don't belong in places. And I'm talking about in our internal perspective, we're assuming we don't belong in places, when the fact of the matter is that we do belong there. We have absolutely something to contribute, and that we just need to show up and own that. Because look, there's something that I've mentioned at one point. I had to realize this: when there's a job posting, it's called a problem statement to me, right? When I really had to think about this, right? It's not just a job posting, it is a problem statement. So someone said we have a problem or we have a gap and we need to fill this gap or address this problem. Let's put out a job post for it, right? So that post is really a problem statement. When they hired you, they said you're the person that is capable and qualified to address the problem, right? So you have to own that problem. You really have to own that problem. And sometimes we can forget that in the process of showing up in different spaces and feeling like we don't belong there. But the truth of the matter is that you are the problem solver. You are the owner of the problem. And so show up and own the problem. Own the problem in a way that nobody else can. Doesn't mean you have every single answer. No. Doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. No. That's not the pressure that we should put on ourselves. But what it does mean is that when you get invited to a space or when you get invited to the room, own the problem. You're uniquely qualified because you were put in position to own the problem, right? Be the leader or the champion for solving the problem. If you don't have the answers, can you reach out to other people? And you should be reaching out to other people. You should be partnering. You should be collaborating. But at the end of the day, you belong there. Your seat at the table is because you are the problem solver. You are the problem solver. Now, how that's easier said than done, right? So the question I always like to ask in midpoint is, right, we talk about the whys or what we can, why we might feel a certain way. I always like to start by asking why. Why do we feel this, or what are the root causes? Because I really do believe that if we don't start to look at the root, we don't address the symptoms, right? So the symptom might be I don't show up in meetings, or I don't contribute, or I don't speak up, or I don't advocate for myself, or I don't talk about the problems, or I don't. But the root is all these other things. So I share with you the root cause, what the potential root is. But then the question becomes, right, how do we challenge ourselves, or how do we navigate when we don't feel like we belong in the room? How do we do it? I think the first thing is that we have to remind ourselves of one of what I just said, is that we were hired to solve that problem. That job is the problem statement. We're uniquely qualified, uniquely positioned to own that problem. So own it. Don't shuck it to anybody else. Don't try to, no, you hired me for this problem. Now let me solve it. Let me figure out how to address it. I'm going to need resources. I'm going to need this. I'm going to give, but I'm here to solve the problem. Recognize that you are there to solve that problem. The second thing is, when you don't feel like you belong in the room, is to remind yourself of everything that you've done to get to the seat that you're in. And I talk about this a lot in my keynotes. This is such a huge point, is we can forget sometimes, particularly when we get into new spaces, whether it's a new organization, a new role, a new project that we're leading, we can forget all the other stuff that we've done to get to our seat that we're in now. And so in the process of that, we can think, oh, I'm not qualified, or I'm not capable of this. Well, the truth of the matter is you've only got that opportunity because you are, right? Even if it was somebody that was a sponsor, right? Or someone that you knew, they said, I see something great in you. I see something good in you. I see qualities or characteristics based on the things that you've done, what I know about you. So that's why we're putting you in this seat. It wasn't luck, right? It was your hard work. So yes, you do belong. Yes, you are seated in the right seat. You do belong because you've worked to get there. And I like to say to make sure that you write a list of what did I do to get here? For some of us, it's, man, we've battled some serious things through life to get to where we are. We took the time to go to school even when it wasn't easy, or we went back to school, maybe while navigating being a parent or taking care of parents, or, you know, sickness or ailments, you name it, having to get off work full time and go to school. All these different things that we've had to navigate to get the skill sets that we have. So yes, you do belong. Nothing you got was free. It was hard earned. So when you start to think, well, no, you belong there. What you're probably dealing with in some cases, though, sometimes, is the fact that it's new and it's uncomfortable. And that's okay. Give yourself permission to get through that uncomfortable phase. But then here's what it also does too. Even in that discomfort, it creates learning opportunities. Creates learning opportunities to stretch yourself, to learn something new, to develop a part of you that might be underdeveloped, or a part of you that you really want to develop, and that this new opportunity creates for you. And so I would ask you in the process of that, when you think about, well, this is new, this is different, I'm not sure if I belong here, ask yourself, what can I take away from this experience? Because the thing that I do know for sure, and when I've noticed when I've grown the most, it has not been when it was something I already knew. Because the truth of the matter is that if you get a job and you have 100% of the skill sets, you're overqualified. Like, you're going into something that you're not going to really learn anything new. You're just going to do something, and that's fine. Sometimes we want to be in a position where we already know it. It's like we can do it like the back of our hand, and that's fine. But then there are times when, if you're really trying to learn and develop something new, you're going to have to get into an uncomfortable position, right? And it's going to mean that you're going to have to learn something that you don't already know. And so that process takes time, but ask yourself, what do I want to walk away from this experience, having learned or developed and able to put in my skill set toolkit? What can I do? And then pursue that. I can vividly remember there was a time in my career when I was just going through a lot of change. Literally every 10 to 12 months, I was relocating to a new state, relocating to manage an entirely different new part of the business, leading people that were older than me, leading people that, had been at the company much longer than me. But I had to fixate on, this is for me to learn and to stretch, because when I get done with this, I'm going to be so much more marketable. I'm going to be so much more of a better leader. I'm going to be so much more skillful. And I called that, even when I wrote the book, the 2.0 version of ourselves. Ask yourself, what does a 2.0 version of me look like? Where are the gaps? And does this thing that I'm going through right now provide the opportunity to fill in some of those gaps? I don't know if anybody likes rap, but I listen to, I have, one song that I like. And yes, it's relevant to the workplace, at least for me right now. He has this statement or this phrase. He says, make your next move your best move. And I love that. Everybody's laughing. For real. Like, he says, make your next move your best move. That's how I look at it, right? When you feel like, hey, I don't belong, and maybe it's because it's really about you don't belong because you don't have the same pedigree or the same skill sets or the same knowledge. Maybe it's everybody else in the room. I say, take it as an opportunity to make your next move your best move by getting in that room and learn as much as you can from everybody in there. Like, learn it, download it, like, get super curious, be proactive in, okay, I want to set a meeting with you to learn what you do and kind of how that works. I'm going to set a meeting with you to learn. Like, that is the best way. I promise you, that is one of the best ways to accelerate your learning. Connect to the people that already know it. Yes. Okay. You don't know everything that everybody else in the room knows. So if they're willing, granted, that's a caveat, right? Now, hopefully you're in a space where they're learning, and I'm going to talk about that if they're not in just a minute. But if they're willing to share, you're getting paid to get better. You're getting paid to learn, to develop an entirely new skill set that, if we're honest, can make you more marketable later, that can help you make more money later. Go learn. Go learn. Flip it on its head and think about, okay, I'm here right now, but I'm really thinking about my next move. So I'm going to learn all I can right here. I'm going to fill in the gaps right now so that I can go get that over there. It's strategic. What does that 2.0 version of you look like? What are the gaps? And if there's people in the room that are smarter than you and you feel like I don't belong here because they have something on me, go figure out what they know. Tag it and bag it. Tag it and bag it, and then go make your next move your best move. That's what I'm going to say. That, I mean, find your support. Find, a circle. If you're in a company, they have ERGs, for example, and you're like, I don't see people that look like me, think like me. But I'm going to say one thing about the part of that, being cautious of trying to find so many people that look like you. I'm going to be honest and tell you that I found that my greatest learnings did not come from people that looked like me. They didn't. It came from people that didn't look like me and didn't have different skill sets than me. So balance that not feeling like you belong with being in situations where you don't know it all and everybody doesn't always look like you, because that can give you an opportunity to create this entirely adjacent strengths and skill sets. That's the goal. But I definitely get you and I feel you, is finding people that are already doing what you want to do or that are ahead of you so that you can learn from them too. Learn from them. And then yes, if you really need that peer-to-peer, see if are there internal or external networks that you can join that give you that boost. Find that. That's so important for you. Find it. I have been fortunate to find a network of women that I can just be honest and transparent, and so if things aren't so exciting or haven't been working the way I would like it to work, I'm feeling some type of way about something, I can text them all, hey, you know what, so I'm feeling, and likewise they do the same, because yes, we do sometimes need that circle, right? That fills us so that we feel like we absolutely belong, no questions in that setting, right? But I still say balance it with connecting with people that don't look like you, that don't think like you, because that is also where real growth happens. Okay. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, because you're probably like, okay, that sounds good, Valeria. That's very utopic. Okay, I get you. I get you. So what about the times when you really don't belong? Are people make you feel like you don't belong? That's the bigger question, because I believe that we belong wherever we put ourselves, right? But sometimes people will try to make us feel like we don't belong in the space, right? We don't belong at the table. We don't belong we just don't. So what do you do? Because that's very real and it happens all the time in the workplace. I'd say go down your communicate before you eliminate process. I used to say this in dating, honestly. I think it's relevant here. So you can look at it and say, all right, well, I'm starting to feel like I don't belong. Is it me or is it them? Again, like dating, is it me or them? What is it? Okay, then go down through your checklist. Okay, have I tried to connect with people in the job? Have I tried to develop relationships, ask questions, learn, onboard, do whatever? Have I tried to address challenges or concerns? Have I tried to get clarity? And then you say, yes, I've tried to get all those things. And the question is, what has the response been? Or has there been a lack of response? And then the other thing I say is, okay, have you tried to do that? And maybe they say, well, not now. We don't have the answers right now, or we don't have information for you now. Okay, that's fine. But then do they circle back? Are you able to get information at some point? Because the ultimate goal is to, one, yes, you want to feel like you belong, but two, most importantly, are just as important, is to feel like you're given the tools to do your job successfully, right? At the end of the day. Then you say, okay, well, I haven't been given the answers. I haven't been able to get the resources. I haven't been able to get the support. I've been communicating. I've been saying, I've been telling you what I need. Again, just like dating or marriage for that matter. right? And you keep going, you keep trying. Then I say, and this is why I'm just going to be honest with you. That's why I have this on Zoom and not live stream for everybody to hear. Give yourself a time frame, right? Okay, by the end of the year, we're going to see how this works out. And I had a feeling the people, somebody on this call has done that. give it a time frame. All right, I'm gonna say I've been communicating for the past 3 months, 4 months. Now it's time to prepare my exit. Because you can't do it forever, right? It's not, sometimes it really is them and not you. So after you've gone through your checklist, you've said, okay, I've tried to do my part, right? Because a working relationship is exactly that. It's still a relationship. It takes two people. It doesn't mean, it's not one-sided. So if you've done your part and you keep feeling you're doing your part, but you're not getting the reciprocity or the mutual effort, now it's time to say, okay, well, I'm gonna give this a few months and then we're gonna see how this works. And then it's time to go. Because here's the truth. You may not, that's why I wanted to start with what the topic was. You might not belong there. You might not. You truly may not belong there. You probably, it might need to go find somewhere else where you belong and you feel included and you feel valued. It's no different than any other relationship. Go find the place that you feel like you belong and that you thrive. Because the workplace is no different than any other relationship. It has to be mutually beneficial. And when it no longer is, it's time to go. So maybe you don't belong at that place. And that's okay. Go find where you do belong and be okay with that. Okay. And I hope you've enjoyed this session. We've got a couple more minutes. For those of you that watch this on demand, make sure that you sign up for the 3-day workplace confidence challenge by going to valerawilson.com/workplace confidence. It is going to be 3 days where we get to bond and build our confidence as women in the workplace. And that will start September the 27th through the 29th. Well, the last day marks the 1-year anniversary of my book. You're absolutely worth it. So this is me, providing 3 days for us to really anchor in on how do we build our workplace confidence. So make sure you join. It is free, so no excuses. And then tag and share with the other women that you know that you want to see boost their confidence in the workplace. I'm going to open it up for questions for anyone that wants to ask questions. Because